Thomas Pritchard had never expected an invitation like this. Just a week before, a formal-looking envelope had arrived at his modest apartment, carrying a message that almost felt like a prank. He was invited to a prestigious charity gala in the heart of the city, a grand event that only the wealthiest and most influential people in town attended. As a high school history teacher from a quiet town on the outskirts, he couldn't help but wonder if someone had made a mistake. But after checking the details multiple times, he realized it was legitimate. Someone, somewhere, had specifically asked for him to be there. Thomas had never been one for grand parties or glamorous crowds. His life was quiet, filled with routines of early morning coffee, late-night grading, and the occasional weekend hike. A small-town teacher, known only for his dedication to his students, he had little to do with the world of glitz and glamour. The invitation baffled him, yet it also intrigued him. Maybe, just this once, he thought, it wouldn't hurt to experience a different world, a world far removed from the simplicity of his daily life. The invitation had stirred something in him, a curiosity, a spark. As the day of the event approached, he dusted off his best suit, a decade-old navy blue one that had seen more weddings and funerals than he could count. He knew he wouldn't fit in with the high-class crowd, but he hoped his appearance would at least make him presentable. The gala promised to be a night of lavish displays, but for Thomas, it was more about stepping outside his comfort zone. On the night of the event, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror before leaving. His reflection showed a man slightly worn by time, with a few streaks of silver in his hair, but his eyes still held a youthful spark. With a mix of nerves and excitement fluttering in his stomach, he stepped out of his apartment and made his way to the venue, determined to make the most of the evening, no matter how out of place he might feel. When he arrived, the sight was dazzling. The grand hall was lit by chandeliers that sparkled like stars, casting a golden glow over an elegantly dressed crowd. He paused, overwhelmed by the luxury surrounding him, feeling every inch the outsider. But he took a deep breath, reminded himself he was there for a reason, and stepped into the world of wealth and privilege. As Thomas walked further into the hall, he couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place. The laughter of the guests echoed, polished and practiced, while waiters in pristine uniforms moved through the crowd, carrying trays laden with fine wine and hors d'oeuvres. Everyone seemed to belong, their polished shoes and designer dresses blending seamlessly with the extravagance of the room. For the first time, Thomas felt the true weight of being an outsider in a world he had only read about. With every step, his discomfort grew. He caught glimpses of groups chatting animatedly about stock markets, international travel, and grand business ventures, topics he could barely relate to. He reminded himself to smile politely, to nod if spoken to, but his awkwardness was evident. Each attempt to join a conversation only highlighted the differences between him and those around him. Just as he was beginning to wonder if coming here had been a mistake, Thomas saw her. Standing by the bar, dressed in a stunning red gown, was a woman whose elegance made the room seem to revolve around her. Sophia Lancaster, a renowned socialite, was known for her keen sense of style and her icy demeanor. She glanced over at him, her gaze cold and appraising, as if trying to decipher why a man like him would even dare step foot in such a place. Sophia's expression changed from curiosity to amusement as her eyes lingered on Thomas's worn suit and uncertain smile. In her world, appearances were everything, and Thomas clearly didn't measure up. With a smirk, she approached him, her heels clicking confidently against the marble floor. "You look a little lost," she commented, her voice laced with condescension. Embarrassed, Thomas forced a polite smile. "Just admiring the decor," he replied, trying to brush off her remark. But her smirk only deepened as she looked him up and down, her gaze lingering just long enough to make him feel small. "This isn't exactly a school field trip," she added with a laugh, turning on her heel before he could respond. Thomas felt a flush rise to his cheeks as Sophia's words echoed in his mind. He tried to shake it off, reminding himself that he wasn't there to impress anyone. But the sting of her dismissal lingered. He tried to immerse himself in the art displayed on the walls, the stunning floral arrangements, and the live orchestra's soft music. Despite his efforts, Sophia's words had struck a nerve. After a while, he noticed a few guests giving him odd glances, whispering amongst themselves. Whether they were talking about him or not, he couldn't tell. But the weight of their judgment felt palpable, intensifying his desire to disappear into the shadows. He told himself it didn't matter what these people thought of him, yet he couldn't entirely quiet the nagging doubt that maybe he truly didn't belong. As the evening progressed, Thomas found himself drifting toward the refreshment table, hoping a drink might calm his nerves. But as he picked up a glass of water, he heard Sophia's voice behind him. "Are you still here?" she asked, her tone dripping with mock surprise. "I thought you'd have slipped out by now. People like you don't usually last long at events like these." Her words cut deeper than he cared to admit. Thomas felt his patience slipping, but instead of snapping back, he chose silence. He looked at her, his gaze steady, meeting her mocking smile with quiet dignity. And in that silence, something shifted. He realized he didn't need to prove anything to her. The people around him continued laughing, unaware of the silent battle unfolding between the two. Thomas took a deep breath, breaking the silence. "I'm here because I was invited," he said calmly, refusing to let her push him away. "And not just as a guest. I was invited by one of the event's main benefactors, a friend who wanted me to be here." His words left Sophia momentarily speechless, her smug expression faltering as she processed his unexpected revelation. The guests nearby, who had overheard the exchange, now looked at Thomas with new interest. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as they began to question who he really was. Sophia's mask of confidence slipped, replaced by a faint blush of embarrassment as her earlier assumptions unraveled before her. Sophia, trying to regain her composure, forced a laugh. "Well, I didn't mean to offend you," she said, though her tone lacked sincerity. "It's just that this isn't the kind of place you'd expect a teacher to be." But Thomas saw through her facade, recognizing that her arrogance was only a veil for her insecurities. He felt a pang of sympathy for her, though he didn't show it. With calm conviction, he looked her in the eyes. "Maybe it's time you stop measuring people by where they come from or how much they have," he said gently. "You might find there's more to life than parties and prestige." His words caught her off guard, resonating in a way she hadn't anticipated. Though she tried to dismiss them, the seed of doubt had been planted. Thomas's words stirred a memory in Sophia, an image of a younger self, back when kindness and humility had been part of her character. She remembered a time before wealth and status had hardened her heart, before she'd learned to hide behind arrogance and disdain. There had been moments of struggle in her life too, though she'd worked hard to erase them from her mind. For a fleeting second, she felt a wave of shame. Here stood a man who had come from humble beginnings, unafraid to be himself, while she had wrapped herself in a shell of superiority. Sophia tried to brush off the uncomfortable thoughts, but the memory lingered, tainting her sense of pride. Sophia retreated to the powder room, staring at her reflection in the ornate mirror. For the first time in years, she didn't recognize the person staring back at her. Thomas's words had triggered something deep within her, unearthing a past she had tried hard to forget. She couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that now gnawed at her, a reminder of the kindness she had lost along the way. As she reapplied her lipstick, her hands trembled slightly. She could continue to play the role of the confident socialite, but she realized it was only a mask, a flimsy one that Thomas had somehow managed to see through. When Sophia returned to the hall, she was met with curious glances. Word had spread quickly about her encounter with the quiet man in the worn suit, sparking a ripple of intrigue. To her surprise, she found Thomas in conversation with none other than James Harlan, one of the city's most respected businessmen and the event's main benefactor. James was a regular at these galas, known for his wealth and equally for his kindness. James glanced over at her as she approached, his expression warm. "Sophia," he greeted her, "I see you've met my good friend Thomas." Sophia froze. The realization hit her, Thomas wasn't just an ordinary guest, he was someone James valued enough to invite personally. Her embarrassment flared up again as James placed a hand on Thomas's shoulder, introducing him to others in the crowd. The night reached its peak as the event organizer took the stage, inviting Thomas to speak. The crowd fell silent, all eyes on him, now curious about who he was and why he had been invited as an honored guest. Nervous but determined, Thomas took a deep breath and stepped forward. As he looked out over the sea of faces, he saw Sophia in the crowd, her expression a mixture of tension and reluctant admiration. He began to speak, not about wealth or success, but about the values he held dear: humility, kindness, and the importance of helping others. He shared stories of his students, the children he taught every day who dreamed of a better future, and his commitment to making that future possible for them. His words resonated, filling the hall with a quiet that seemed to echo with more than just admiration. Sophia shifted uncomfortably, her mind torn between her pride and the growing urge to apologize. As Thomas spoke, she felt the weight of her own actions pressing down on her. The memory of her mocking him earlier now felt unbearably petty. But Sophia was a woman who had built her life on image, and to humble herself publicly felt too difficult. She struggled, weighing her choices as Thomas's speech ended to a standing ovation. She hesitated before finally approaching him, offering a strained smile. "Your speech, it was very inspiring," she managed, though her words sounded hollow. Thomas simply nodded, sensing her internal conflict. "Thank you, Sophia," he replied quietly, his gentle tone filled with sincerity, though he didn't dwell on her discomfort. She felt a strange pang of disappointment at his calm acceptance of her compliment, which only deepened her confusion. Sophia stood silently as others gathered around Thomas, eager to speak with him. Suddenly, it was as if he had become the center of the event. One by one, people offered him compliments and asked questions about his work. Sophia felt her confidence falter as she watched, realizing just how much admiration he had garnered in such a short time. Though the evening had begun with her basking in the spotlight, the night was ending with her standing in his shadow. The final sting came when she overheard someone comment, "Sophia really needs to learn a thing or two from him." The words were unkind, but in that moment, they felt justified. The small crowd parted as Thomas approached her once again. He didn't look at her with pity or condescension, only understanding. "We all have something to learn, don't we?" he said softly, giving her a chance to redeem herself. At last, Sophia found herself without an audience, alone with Thomas in a quiet corner of the hall. "I was wrong about you," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Her pride finally melted away, leaving only honesty in its place. "I thought people had to earn respect by their achievements or their status, but you don't need any of that." Thomas nodded, his gaze gentle. "Respect isn't something anyone needs to earn, Sophia. It's something we should offer freely. Every person has a story, a struggle. Sometimes all it takes is a little kindness to make a difference. His words hung in the air, resonating deeply within her. For the first time, Sophia felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps she could change, that perhaps it wasn't too late. Inspired by their conversation, Thomas extended an unexpected invitation. "Come visit my town sometime," he offered. "See the school where I work, meet the kids. They're the real reason I'm here tonight." Sophia felt a pang of hesitation, but something in her wanted to accept. It was a world she'd never known, a place where kindness and hard work, not wealth or status, defined a person's worth. Sophia surprised herself by nodding. I think I'd like that," she said, her voice steady. Thomas smiled, sensing her sincerity. "Good," he replied. "There's a lot to learn from people who have little in terms of wealth but a great deal in terms of heart." With that, he left her to consider the weight of his words, leaving her feeling both humbled and hopeful. As the night drew to a close, Thomas prepared to leave, his purpose at the gala fulfilled. He felt a quiet satisfaction, not from the praise he had received, but from the knowledge that he had stayed true to himself. Sophia watched him go, feeling a strange sense of loss. She realized that, for all the people she knew and all the places she had been, she had never encountered someone like Thomas, someone who was truly genuine. The noise of the gala faded as she watched him walk away, feeling as though he had left a piece of himself behind, something she hadn't quite grasped but felt deeply. And in that moment, she knew that meeting him had changed her life in ways she couldn't yet understand. Back at home, Thomas found himself reflecting on the night's events. His small apartment felt comforting, familiar, a sharp contrast to the extravagance of the gala. He thought about Sophia, about her condescending remarks and how they had been replaced by genuine curiosity and even a hint of respect. He could only hope that the night had planted a seed of change within her. Meanwhile, he reminded himself to remain humble, to remember that his life's work wasn't about fame or recognition. His students, his family, his community, that was what mattered. And tonight, he felt an even stronger resolve to continue giving his best to those who needed him most, feeling gratitude for the simple life he had chosen. For Sophia, the morning after the gala brought a rush of self-reflection. She looked around her luxurious home, but the comfort and opulence that once brought her pride now felt strangely hollow. Thomas's words echoed in her mind, challenging her assumptions and forcing her to confront memories she had long buried. Memories of simpler times, when her life had been guided by values, not wealth. She knew she had hardened over the years, pushing away her kindness to survive in a world that valued power and image. But Thomas's words had reminded her of who she had once been, of the girl who cared about others, who believed in people's intrinsic worth. She couldn't ignore the aching desire to reconnect with that part of herself. Confused and restless, Sophia reached out to a few friends, hoping for insight. But as she spoke with them, she realized how shallow these friendships were. Their conversations revolved around shopping, parties, and social media, not one seemed interested in anything beyond the surface. The more they talked, the more she felt a growing sense of isolation. Thomas had shown her that there was another way to live, and her current life suddenly felt unbearably empty. Feeling lost, Sophia wondered if it was time to make changes in her life, to step away from the socialite scene and seek something more meaningful. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but the longing for purpose gnawed at her heart, urging her to take the first step toward change. In a moment of spontaneity, Sophia decided to visit her childhood neighborhood, a small town where people knew each other by name and helped each other without a second thought. As she walked through the familiar streets, she felt a rush of nostalgia mixed with regret. She remembered the girl she had once been, filled with dreams and kindness, untouched by the pressures of high society. Sophia felt a sense of clarity begin to form. She realized she had become disconnected from her roots, lost in a world that valued appearances over authenticity. And for the first time, she felt ready to leave that world behind and reconnect with what truly mattered. While Sophia wrestled with these revelations, Thomas continued his quiet life, teaching and guiding his students with patience and dedication. He remained unaware of the impact he had made on Sophia, focusing instead on his classroom and the lives he touched daily. For him, every lesson, every small achievement his students made, felt like a victory. Though the gala had been a unique experience, Thomas knew he belonged here, among his students, where he could make a genuine difference. He felt at peace, satisfied with his life's path, and unaware of the journey he had inadvertently inspired Sophia to begin. Determined to make a real change, Sophia volunteered at a local charity for underprivileged families. It was her first time experiencing the hardship faced by so many. She met parents who struggled to provide for their children, yet were filled with resilience and hope. These encounters touched her in a way she hadn't expected, awakening a compassion she hadn't felt in years. Through this experience, Sophia finally began to understand the true depth of Thomas's work. It wasn't about recognition or reward, it was about lifting others, giving them hope, and making a difference, no matter how small. The experience left her humbled, and for the first time, she felt a genuine connection to the world beyond wealth and privilege. Sophia's time volunteering showed her the strength that lay in empathy. Each story, each struggle she encountered, resonated deeply within her, teaching her that real wealth was in giving back. She began to envision a life where she used her resources to help others instead of elevating her own status. The seed Thomas had planted was now growing into a deep, unshakable resolve. She reached out to the charity, offering to support more initiatives, to provide resources and mentorship. Sophia felt a renewed sense of purpose, as though she had finally found the path she was meant to follow. One evening, feeling an overwhelming urge to express her gratitude, Sophia sat down to write Thomas a letter. She struggled with the words, wanting to convey how much he had changed her perspective. Her pride fought against the vulnerability of the gesture, but she knew that this was a step toward the new life she wanted to embrace. In the letter, she thanked him for his quiet wisdom and for challenging her to see beyond her own narrow views. She admitted to her initial prejudice and arrogance, explaining how his words had awakened a longing for a meaningful life. "You helped me see myself, flaws and all, and for that, I am grateful beyond words," she wrote, her hand trembling as she signed her name. She sealed the letter and sent it, hoping he would understand her sincerity. The days that followed marked a profound shift in Sophia's life. She began working closely with the charity, supporting projects for education, healthcare, and housing in underprivileged communities. Her days, once filled with social events and status-driven gatherings, now revolved around visits to shelters, schools, and community centers. She traded her designer clothes for more practical attire, spending her evenings planning ways to help those in need. Sophia felt lighter, unburdened by the expectations and judgments of her old life. She found herself smiling more, feeling an authentic joy that no lavish gala or luxury could provide. People who had once only seen her as a glamorous socialite now witnessed a transformation, one that had turned her into a compassionate and driven woman. For the first time in her life, she felt truly happy. Weeks later, Thomas was surprised to find an elegant envelope in his mailbox. Opening it, he read Sophia's letter with a gentle smile, touched by her words. He hadn't expected her to change so profoundly or to reach out, but he felt glad that his words had resonated with her. Inspired by her sincerity, Thomas decided to invite her to his town to see firsthand the impact she could make on a community that shared her new sense of purpose. Sophia accepted the invitation without hesitation. When she arrived, she found herself in a world far removed from her glamorous past. She visited the small, modest school where Thomas taught, meeting the children he had dedicated his life to. Their faces lit up as Thomas introduced her, and she quickly became engrossed in their laughter, their stories, and their dreams. Sophia felt an unexpected sense of belonging, one she had never experienced in the polished world of high society. As Sophia spent more time with Thomas and the community, her own transformation began to inspire others. Old friends from her social circle noticed the changes in her, and though many dismissed it as a phase, a few reached out, curious about her journey. Some joined her at the community center, others volunteered at the school, each discovering a new sense of purpose alongside her. Even James Harlan, the wealthy businessman and mutual friend who had introduced Thomas and Sophia, noticed her dedication. Moved by her efforts, he pledged to match her contributions, launching a wave of support for the project Sophia had become so passionate about. Her actions ignited a ripple effect, transforming not only her life but the lives of everyone she touched. Sophia soon began dreaming of establishing her own charity, one that would provide opportunities for education, healthcare, and personal growth for those who needed it most. She poured her heart into planning, determined to create an organization that would honor the values Thomas had taught her. She saw it as a way to carry his wisdom forward, to ensure that his lessons of kindness and empathy reached even more people. Her charity became a beacon of hope, drawing support from people across the city who shared her vision. Each success each family helped felt like a testament to the change Thomas had sparked within her. Sophia finally understood that wealth and influence had purpose when used selflessly, and with each passing day, her commitment grew stronger. A year after the gala, Sophia organized a fundraising event for her new charity, inviting both high-profile figures and the community she served. She asked Thomas to be the guest of honor, hoping his presence would remind everyone of the values that had inspired her transformation. When he arrived, dressed in the same humble suit from their first meeting, the entire room fell silent, his influence now widely known and deeply respected. As Thomas took the stage, Sophia felt a surge of gratitude. She watched as he spoke, his words reaching hearts with the same sincerity and humility that had changed her life. By the end of the evening, donations poured in, exceeding all expectations. Thomas's presence had reminded everyone of the power of kindness, humility, and purpose. Sophia knew that the night marked the fulfillment of a journey she had never expected to take. Reflecting on her journey, Sophia realized just how far she had come. She no longer felt the need for approval from society, nor the pressure to maintain a perfect image. Instead, she felt grounded in a life filled with purpose, one that honored the values she now held dear. Her friendship with Thomas had changed the course of her life, showing her that true wealth lay in connection and compassion. And as Thomas returned to his quiet life, Sophia felt a profound sense of peace. She knew that, thanks to him, she had found a legacy worth building, a legacy of kindness, humility, and unwavering purpose.